With the offseason officially behind us and our 53-man roster set, every move, every play, every game counts. As we embark on our mission to take back the top of the AFC West. Raiders versus Saints is our topic of the evening, and this is the Will to Win. Okay folks, welcome to the show. Tonight's show is going to be broken up into 5 segments. Our team opposition segment, where we talk to Brian Pavek from the Saint Nation podcast. Segment number 2, we're going to talk to Charlie Boots from the Raider Live podcast and our State of the Raiders segment. Segment number 3 will be our game film breakdown with Coach Ted. Our 4th segment of the evening is going to be a new segment here at the Will to Win called By the Numbers. Then we're going to wrap up the show with our Pick'em segment. Let's get started, shall we? Okay, welcome Raider Nation. Today we're going to be joined by Brian Pavek from the Saints Nation podcast. We're going to get an inside look on what the New Orleans Saints is going to bring this Sunday as we match them up in New Orleans. Brian Pavek, welcome to the Will to Win.
Thanks for having me on.
No, absolutely, Brian. We really appreciate your time. Okay, now that the training camp is wrapped up, the preseason games are over, we noticed that your offense is a lot different than it used to be. Yes, you got your Drew Brees that's finally back, healthy and looking good. But what about your running game? I know you're led by Mark Ingram and company and guys like Hightower. What could you tell us about your running game?
The running game is going to be really interesting just to see how it develops throughout the year. And this will be kind of a theme you guys will hear from me all day. A lot of the running game is predicated on the offensive line. If the line doesn't have the ability to generate holes, I don't care if you've got Dickerson, you've got Peterson, you pick your Hall of Famer, throw them back there. They're still going to get tackled in the backfield because there's nowhere to run. So it all builds around that. But the Saints actually have a pretty talented backfield. I mean, Mark Ingram, when healthy, has been one of the top overall producers the last few years. High carry back, really starting to look like the guy he was at Alabama. Then you've got an old veteran in Tim Hightower, great story. Fought his way back from injuries, had this awful leg infection and this whole fiasco. Managed to work his way back into the NFL. But if, at least for me, I think the X factor for this team on the ground is CJ Spiller. He just wasn't healthy last year. He had a knee scope early in the off season, and the straight line speed was there, but he didn't have the shiftiness. And that's really the defining characteristic of his game as a back, is just the ability to have that balance in and out of the hole, being able to make guys miss in the open field and turn nothing into something. He seems to be getting that ability back this off season, and of all of the Saints backs. And just kind of looking at to a Raiders standpoint, Ingram doesn't scare you. He can be a huge cog in the machine, but he's not really a catalyst. Healthy C.J. Spiller should scare every team in the league, if that's what he is, because he only has to hit one open hole, and he can be gone from anywhere on the field. And that big playability is definitely something to watch. Also, they had a 7th-round pick, Daniel Lasco out of Cal. The guy's a freak. Just his physical tools are off the chart. Big back, powerful, phenomenal speed and balance. I don't know how many carries he's going to get early in the season, but if he was called upon to do so, he could definitely make some noise. So it's going to be interesting to see how they develop.
All right, Brian. Well, with that being said, and CJ Spiller being that big threat that we should worry about, along with some great complementary backs, you all already said that it's really going to be based off your offensive line play. So your offensive tackles not only are going to have to really open up holes in the run, but they're also going to have to be protecting from guys like Bruce Irvin and Khalil Mack. What could you tell us about your offensive line, both from a pass rush standpoint and a rushing standpoint?
Well, from a rushing standpoint, the Saints are still completing their transition over to a zone blocking scheme. And some of the older guys on the roster, in particular Zach Strief, are still kind of holdovers from when they were running more of a man blocking screen, more of a power O. So that's part of the transition issues. I don't know if you guys got to see any of the embarrassing offensive line play that occurred in the preseason. But there was a lot of execution issues, and that's something that's coachable. But there's also there's a talent gap, if we're just being honest, and it's on the interior of the Saints offensive line. I've been kind of making comments to other fans and other writers as well, throughout the off season, but in particular after we've seen these preseason games. My biggest hope from week one is that Khalil Mack doesn't end Drew Brees' season. And I don't mean that as that Khalil's a dirty player. I mean is he's a damn animal. And if he gets matched up with Zach Strief, I don't think Strief has a chance. If Teron Armstead's healthy, he can handle Mack. He's top 3, top 4 left tackle in the league. He's an athletic freak. Mack can beat him for sure, but he doesn't terrify me there. But if he lines up on the right-hand side, I'm heavily concerned. I think the offensive line's ability to protect Drew Brees, I don't think it would be a stretch to say that would be the single biggest deciding factor in this entire game. If the Raiders are able to get into the backfield consistently, disrupt the flow of the offense, and create a major problem, I don't know if the Saints can recover because they don't have the offensive line talent they've had in the past.
Okay, Brian, we know that Drew Brees is coming towards the end of his career, but we also realize he has a lot left in the tank. His wide receiving core has changed quite a bit. You got guys like Cook, Fleener, and Snead. What could you tell us about these guys and your wide receiving core as a whole, and what should we expect this weekend?
And to be fair, it's kind of just from those offensive line issues to a degree, it's very difficult to make an accurate statement or prediction on that, just because if the quarterback doesn't have time, it doesn't really matter how open the receivers get. But if I'm speaking just to a talent perspective, and this is actually a statement I'll stand by, outside of maybe, and that is a maybe, the 2011 team, which other than Peyton Manning's loaded roster in I think it was 2013 or 14, owns almost every NFL record for offensive production. This is the most talented group of weapons Drew Brees has ever had in front of him. But all of that becomes null and void if the line can't keep him standing. So it's really the $100 million question. But as far as the receiving core, Brandon Cooks, the first-round receiver they took out of Oregon State, he's going into his third year, was one of the best deep threats in the NFL last year, had an incredibly quiet, damn near 1,200 yards, 9 touchdowns, and did that with really no other players drawing a lot of tension away from him. And he wasn't drafted to be the number one guy. He was drafted to be the guy that freed up things for Jimmy Graham. Then, Graham's injury history compounded with his tendency to be a prima donna, got him shipped out. So now they replace him with Kobe Fleener, a player who's actually a little faster than Jimmy, not as physical, not as strong, but a better route runner. Maybe even a better fit into the system, although not a better player. And obviously, no one's I've ever seen is stupid enough to say Kobe Fleener's better than Jimmy Graham, at their best. But he could be a better fit. You have a young guy in Willie Snead who's just he's a really tough player. I think he was at Ball State. Good gritty guy, great route runner. Was a rookie last year, had almost 1,000 yards. That's a pretty good season in anybody's book. And then they've got this kid this year, Mike Thomas. He's Keyshawn Johnson's nephew, and pretty much everything you would expect to come with that is there. Kid works hard, runs great routes, phenomenal hands, and he's a lot faster than you think when you see a guy that big. Like, he's kind of got that prototypical modern-day number one NFL receiver build, just looks the part. So, it's from a weapons standpoint, I think the Saints are really solid, maybe in much better position than they've been in years with all these aging players they've had on the offense.
Okay, Brian, we know that Andrews Pete is a crowd favorite. How's his development coming on this year? Where does he stand?
That actually probably is going to be the toughest question you could probably ask me all day. And some of that, it really isn't Pete's fault. Pete hasn't looked very good in New Orleans, but some of that comes down to, and I don't know how familiar either of you are with the offensive line. I'm learning more and more as it goes, but it's definitely not my area of strength as far as knowledge. But all the people that I've talked to, from beat writers to former coaches and, people I know, basically tell me the same thing. You take a player like that that's developing, basically played one position his whole life, and then you start moving him around and changing his footwork and changing his side, because they were going to move him to right tackle to take over for Zach Street, because he ain't taking Teron Armstead's job. He flat out doesn't have the talent to take Teron Armstead's job. But he certainly could take Street's. Now you're switching his footwork there. Then you move him inside to guard. And then it's right guard, it's left guard, then back to left tackle, then back to right tackle. He's moving all over the place. And, young kid, I think he's like 22 years old. His head's got to be swimming. You're trying to pick up NFL technique. The players here are a little bit bigger, a little bit stronger, and a whole lot faster than what you encountered in the Pac-12. You start going down that list, and I'm not sure it's a fair assessment from fans and coaches alike to, say he's a bust or anything like that. But he hasn't lived up to a first-round billing yet. Now, that said, the kid's got a lot of talent. From everything I've heard, he's a smart guy. He works hard. He likes to be coached. There's nothing saying that by the end of the year, he could be a really good left or right guard for the Saints and move out to tackle next year and have a great career. But as of today, let's just say that wait and see is the most positive thing I can say about him to this point as a drafted player.
All right, Brian. With that being said, let's take a look on the other side of the ball. One thing that we could tell you is no matter if we get our running game going or not, Carr likes to throw the ball. This offense likes to put the ball up in the air and also get it down the field. And with guys like Cooper, Crabtree, and Seth Roberts, those are formidable threats to your defense. What could you tell us about your secondary, in particular your corners, in matching up with our wide receivers?
And I was dreading the defense questions because the Saints have kind of become new style record setters in the style of mediocrity in the last few years defensively. There is one player on our defense that I have no concern about, and that's Delvin Breaux. He came out of nowhere last year. Guy went trial by fire, got to go against Julio Jones twice. In their one-on-one matchups, basically shut him down. Shut down Allen Robinson when we played Jacksonville. They moved Robinson over to go against Browner. You can guess how that went if you know how Browner's season went last year. Played Odell Beckham. He went through a real trial by fire, and basically other than T.Y. Hilton tripping him twice and a couple of pick plays against Odell Beckham Jr., which is really just experience stuff, that's easy to coach out. The guy was a stud. He was a top corner in the NFL last year by every measurable. I'm not a huge fan of PFF, but you go check their stats, and he's towards the top on all of them. So, if I was going to make a prediction, I don't think Amari Cooper will be the player that'll beat the Saints one way or another. And he's a hell of a talent. I was in love with him coming out of the draft last year. I thought he was a phenomenal pickup by the Raiders. And just for the record, I think Derek Carr is the best young quarterback in the NFL. And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. You can check my Twitter profile. I've said it before. I think the kid's got every tool you need. But I think Breaux can, if not erase Cooper, he can remove his ability to change the game. The guy I'm worried about is Crabtree. And a lot of it comes down to just his style of a player, the route running, the hands. Crabtree's really good in the open field, after he catches the ball. He's not a game breaker, but he's a pretty damn good number two. And the Saints are starting a guy who's basically a redshirt rookie in P.J. Williams. And Williams has got all the talent in the world. The guy is supremely gifted. Helped Florida State win a national championship. Was named defensive MVP of that game. He can ball. But Crabtree's a veteran. He knows how to beat players. He knows how to get open. And my concern from the Saints' perspective is, can Williams match up with a guy who's got a proven track record at this level right out the gate? Because I don't think the Saints have a great pass rush. I'm not sure if it'll even be adequate. So let's forget great. And without a pass rush to make up for it, that means your secondary has to hold up another second, another half second, and that's just tough to do at the NFL level. So I do think the Raiders will have some opportunities to attack through the air. And one thing I would also watch for Carr is dump-off passes to Murray. The Saints improved their linebacking core a lot this year, but improved and good are very different words, and I'm not sure I get to speak the second one about our linebackers yet. I would actually see that as being an area where the Raiders might try to attack, especially since they know Dennis Allen. They know how aggressive he is defensively, and they may try to take advantage of that against him.
Okay, Brian, speaking of the defensive line, we know that you added guys like Nick Fairley. You guys also drafted Rankins. Well, and we also know that you have Cameron Jordan. What could you tell us about your pass rush? Should we be more concerned of your ends, or could you actually bring pressure up the middle?
Well, to answer one part of that right away, Cam Jordan's the best defensive player on the Saints. The only guy that can even enter that conversation is Delvin Breaux. Cam Jordan is a complete defensive end. There's not a lot of those in the league. There's a lot of pass rushers. A lot of those guys can be had in the run game. Jordan's been elite in the run game his whole career. He's developed into a skilled pass rusher. So he's a guy, if I was going to say the Saints had one guy up front that could make a difference, it's him. Fairley's fit. He seems motivated. He's playing at a really high level. So he's a guy that I'd have to worry about, but it really is, it's that push up the middle that's going to be a deciding factor for the Saints defense. Carr's got some wheels. You know, no one's going to mistake him for Cam Newton, but he can run, and he's willing to run. And if you get pressure up the middle, you can affect the ability to do that. Quarterbacks, regardless of stature or ability, they hate pressure up the guy. And that's why the loss of Rankins is one that really bothers me for this game in particular, just because of the threat of Mack on the outside. I don't worry about Bruce Irvin as much as a pass rusher because he's just never really produced as one. Kind of ironically, he actually just turned into a really solid linebacker in general. So that was just kind of an interesting career arc for him. But Mack terrifies me, and kind of looking at the other end for the Saints, if they want to be able to compete with that and try to put off points, they got to get the Raiders off the field. And I don't know if Fairley and Davison, Tyler Davison, their second year starting nose tackle, will have the ability to push that interior and create those opportunities for the defensive ends. Although they did just sign Paul Kruger, who was a free agent. He got released by the Browns. I think a year and a half, 2 years removed from an 11-sack season. Had 50-plus pressures last year. So he's got some potential, but I have no film on him in a Saints uniform. So that's one of those things where, yeah, I can say it could happen, but it's very difficult to make any kind of predictions one way or another.
We boasted up our offensive line, so especially the middle of our offensive line. Now, we've been known since last year to be a pass first type of offense, but all indications point that we're going to try to run the ball and run the ball a lot, especially up the middle. So you just gave us a good outline about your defensive linemen and how they're going to hold up. What about your linebackers? Because I know we got guys like Osemele Hudson and Gabe Jackson that are really going to try to push the middle of your defensive line, which means your linebackers are really going to have to step up. What can you tell us about your linebacking core?
It's definitely a work in progress. One thing that we saw last year, and really has been true for his whole career, Donnell Ellerbe is a top-tier linebacker when he's healthy. The problem is he's healthy for about 17 seconds a season, and then he gets nicked up, and then he doesn't get on the field, and your defense suffers. So that's kind of number one for the Saints. When he's there, he flies around. He's got some real speed and ability to cover. Great instinctive veteran. He makes a difference. They picked up James Laurinaitis in the offseason. Another guy, great instincts, extremely intelligent, good tackler in the run game. Not the best in coverage, but very smart player, has a tendency to be where he needs to be. I think a lot of the performance for the linebacking crew will actually come down to two players. One is actually strong safety Kenny Vaccaro, who's kind of a Swiss Army knife. He plays all over the field, including sometimes playing linebacker. in some of their more exotic sets. And then they also have last year's second first-round pick in Stephon Anthony, who moved over to the strong side. And in some ways, I see that as actually a promotion for him rather than a demotion and losing the middle linebacker spot. Just phenomenal athlete. You draw up a linebacker, it looks a lot like he does. Big, physical, powerful, fast, good instincts. I think Anthony could be the guy, just as far as the linebackers are concerned, for the Saints, which would be the guy I'd look to make a difference and try to counter what the Raiders are going to try to do. But like you said, they do have that improved interior, and the Saints gave up a lot of yards on the ground last year. I think they averaged giving up like 5.8 yards per carry or some ridiculous number like that. So basically, any running back that went against the Saints turned into Jim Brown. So that's not something that gives you a lot of confidence, but a big part of that was the linebackers last year were terrible. We actually felt like we downgraded in some ways from Curtis Lofton, who we let go a couple years ago, even though he's a tremendous veteran presence, just didn't have it anymore. I believe you had him on the team last year. And when you're saying you're downgrading from that kind of gives you an idea of what you were dealing with on this defense.
All right, Brian, thank you very much for joining the Will to Win today and talking about your Saints. We look forward to the matchup. We know it's going to be a great game. Is there anything that you would like to say to our audience to let them know where they could find the Saint Nation podcast or anything else you have going on?
Well, if anyone is interested in checking it out, we do post the podcast at thesaintsnation.com. Kind of in a weird way, I'm actually a hometown kid that's rooting for the enemy in this case because I do live in the Bay Area. Just really kind of hoping for a good game. I do hope both teams have a good season this year. I like a lot of the things the Raiders are doing with that young nucleus. Thank you to you guys for having me onto the show. And if anyone has any disagreements or really just wants to discuss any of my opinions, you can find me on Twitter at Karus16. That's KARUS16. More than happy to always talk football and debate. I don't believe anybody is unequivocally right, but you better bring your facts.
All right, Brian. Well, once again, we thank you for being on the Will to Win, and we'll talk to you soon. All right, Raider Nation, we're going to take a quick break, but when we come back, we're going to send it over to Pete for the State of the Raiders segment, where he's joined by Charlie Boots from Raider Life Podcast. Stay tuned.
Welcome back, Raider Nation. In this line of work, you always hope to be able to once or maybe twice in your career be able to have an interview with somebody that was truly, truly great in your chosen field of expertise. In our case, sports. Our next guest not only has done that, but he's done it with scores more of our greatest heroes of all time. That's right, guys like Ted Hendricks, Cliff Branch, and Fred Biletnikoff. In a short period of time, our next guest has been able to have incredible interviews, and we recommend that you check him out. In fact, his videos will appear in our suggested sections below. Right now, we'd like to welcome into our studio Charlie Boots. Charlie, welcome to the Will to Win.
Oh man, I'm excited to be at the Will to Win, making the commitment to excellence every day, baby.
Absolutely. You're part of our Boots on the Ground episode where we're going to have some footage from you coming up of the regular season. But we got a couple of questions for you right now about this roster. Are there any cuts that surprise you at all?
Nah, man. George Atkinson the third getting cut, that hurt a little bit. But you were telling me earlier, man, he's headed to the Cleveland Browns. So you know what, with Hugh over there, RG3, they might capture a little magic out in Cleveland and do something special, man. He's a special guy.
Okay, well, what about this team that you see so far, offensively or defensively? Are there any positions that you think maybe we need to tighten up before we play Sunday's game?
Oh, man, I don't know. You know what I'm curious about? I'm curious to know what are they holding back from us? Like, what haven't we seen yet? But the only concern I have right now, I think the D-line's going to step up, and hopefully the defense starts locking it down, man. If that defense could start scaring people, man, this team's going to be something special to watch.
Absolutely. That kind of leads us into our next question here. So whether or not this team could be special, well, we've struggled the last 12 years, right? Now, starting a few years ago, we started turning it around by bringing in guys like McKenzie, drafting guys like Carr, and finally getting a coaching staff in here that really can work together. What do you think has been the biggest thing to contribute to the success that we should be having? A combination of all three?
Man, I think all the right things are coming together. I think Reggie's got some taste for talent, man, and he showed that over and over again. Reggie doesn't play games, and I think Jack Del Rio's going to get this thing clicking, man. And it looks like the silver and black engine's ready to fire off, baby.
Okay, let's talk about your own particular philosophy. Let's say you're in charge of this team. What does a Charlie Boots team look like? Where do you put your attention? Are you a draft guy, free agency? Do you look at free agent development? Or would you be more hands-off, and let the guys around you that are football guys make the decision?
Man, I think I would be hands-off. I think that I would bring in the legends because they know what this brand's all about. The same way Reggie's been doing it, the same way Al always did it. Keep these guys around. The special thing about the Raiders organization is the fact that these young guys, it's more than just a team. There's 31 teams, and then there's one family out in the NFL, and when you have a team where the legends are always around the youngsters and the commitment to excellence is constantly instilled in people, man, that gets you going, that gets you motivated. And I think that they're doing everything right now how I would do it if I could do things to the best of their ability. We got a great situation right now in Oakland.
So let's carry that on to the next question. Are you buying into the hype, that this team is actually different? We've said it in the past before, but do you see anything or feel anything different about this team that you haven't in the past?
We'll see. We're coming off a 6-win year, and now we want the Super Bowl the next year. And I'm not mad at Raider Nation for wanting that. I want a Lombardi right now, one for all, fourth for Al. But I think this team's going to take the AFC West, and then once they get to the playoffs, you never know what could happen once you hit the playoffs.
Well, let's look at what are the players on this football team. Right now, like I said before, drafting Derek Carr and Khalil Mack was, pretty special. But there's been a lot of talk, particularly in the media, that Derek Carr, even though he's got such a great attitude and he's team first, he may not be a franchise quarterback. Talking to as many people as you have, what have people said about him, or what do you personally, think about him, his personality, and where he might be able to take us?
Man, we got to see what he could do. We got to see what's going to happen when this guy takes the field. Is he going to make the bigger decisions? Is he going to win these games in the fourth quarter? And if he can do that, man, I think Derek Carr could have a hell of a legacy in the NFL.
What about the people that you have interviewed? I mean, you've talked to some Raider greats. What have they said in particular about Derek Carr and this football team going forward?
That Derek Carr is a great leader, and that Derek Carr has been able to make this whole... You know what's cool about Derek Carr too, man? You don't see an ego off this guy. You see a guy, he wants to make this feel like a brotherhood. He's keeping everybody involved. One thing I love actually, is the fact that, man, Derek Carr and Khalil Mack feeling like they're forming a little brotherhood out here, and that unites the offense and defense. A lot of times you hear about, the offense goes their own way, defense goes their own way, and they give each other high fives when something's successful. But I think this whole team is taking on a family feel, and that's usually the recipe for great things. And everybody's been really saying that Derek Carr is showing the signs of a great leader, and now let's see if he could take his game to the next level.
Yeah, the teams that have more of a family type of atmosphere, I think it's always easier. Free agents don't leave as easy. The chemistry always seems to come together, and you play bigger than you normally are, while other teams tear themselves apart, when you have a bad locker room. But let's take a look at the schedule. What are your expectations this year in terms of our schedule? What do you think our record should be?
Man, I think I'm going to say this is a heater. 10-11 wins. I think we take 10-11 wins out of that schedule. Only concern, traveling west to east. Sometimes that could have a toll on you. But other than that, man, 10-11 wins. Book it, stamp it, send it in.
I predicted 10 wins myself. Now, you've interviewed a lot of different people on your podcast in a really short period of time. Only since February, you've had some great names on there. Is there a best interview you've had? I haven't listened to the Otis Sistrick interview, but I know that's going to be interesting. In all the people you've talked to, and even in your travels, is there one interview that just stands out to you?
Probably Lester Hayes. And if you head over to RaiderLife.com, folks, you could check out all the past interviews. Lester Hayes, man, that was a great interview, and that's a larger-than-life personality, and should be Hall of Famer. Cliff Branch, they're all amazing, man, because all these guys have incredible stories. They were all incredible men, and it's amazing to me to see how there's different lanes to greatness. These guys, they all came from different places and different circumstances, and as the different decades go on, they grew up in different Americas, and they all made it to the promised land, and I love hearing what the path was to get there.
Lester the Molester, man, I haven't heard that one yet, but I'll be sure to listen to it. Now, you were at the Hall of Fame celebration with Kenny Stabler. And while you were there, you met Mark Davis, Tim Brown, but the Stabler family was also there. And, they've been kind enough to be on our show. And by the way, Kim Rossbush says she loves you. Can you tell us a little bit about how that went down?
Oh, man, let me tell you something. That was a time of my life, man. Let me walk you through it. We went to the crazy induction, right? So it was crazy to just be in Canton, Ohio that whole weekend, experience the tailgate and be with Raider Nation for that. And then to top it off, we went to the Oakland Raiders Stabler family after party, and oh man, that was something else. We had Tom Flores there, we had Art Shell, we had Raymond Chester, we had Mama Davis, Mark Davis, Kim Bush, the Snake sisters, the Snake daughters. Man, it was incredible, and all that Raider royalty. Clem Daniels, I got to sit there and talk to Clem Daniels, the man himself, and hear about some gems he was dropping on me, man. So it was an honor to be there, and the Stabler family and the Bush family, man, they took great care of us, and they made sure we all had a great time.
That sounds fantastic. We'd kind of like to put this thing to rest. There's a lot of stuff out there with the Stabler family. People have talked about they didn't want to put any paraphernalia in the Hall of Fame because they had problems with the Raiders. You didn't detect any of that, did you?
No, I don't think that's the case at all. I think that this is what happened. The confusing part, when you walked into the hall and they had the display for the guys who got inducted this year, all the guys, they had their team stuff in their locker. Well, Snake had two displays. So the display that Snake had that was by the other guys' lockers, there wasn't any Raider stuff in, but the case across from that had the Raiders jersey. But man, I understand how people felt, because when I was there too, I was thinking, where's the Raider stuff? But man, I don't think the family, was designing the display. I think that's on the
No,
wall.
I agree. It's a good thing to put to rest, however. So you're going to be headed out to the New Orleans game, and we're excited to get the footage that you're going to give us back. But how do people find out where you're going to be at, or the things that you guys are going to be doing?
Oh man, well right now, if you're on Facebook, you add me, Charlie Boots. On last week's episode on RaiderLife.com, we had Nikita Porter. Nikita Porter and Ken Webb are based out of Atlanta. They run a company called Raider Rally Road Trips. So they've lined up this whole crazy weekend for us. And the Southern Alliance Booster Club has some events down there. So you check out those Facebook pages, and there's a whole itinerary. I know I'll be arriving on Saturday. Saturday, we got a food eating contest out there, and we got the official Raider Nation party at night. Ted Hendricks, the Mad Stork, and who else is going to be up in there? Well, I know the Stork's going to be there, and a lot of other Raider greats are going to be rolling through. Then they set up a whole parade, full band, to march Raider Nation up Bourbon Street and to the stadium on game day. So, man, it's going to be an incredible weekend down in New Orleans, and I can't wait to get there.
Sounds incredible, man. That sounds great. So we're looking forward to that game ourselves here. So, Charlie, let's get down to the brass tacks, shall we? What do you think we've got to do to come out with a win, and what's your prediction for the score?
Oh, man, it's going to be a shootout. I think we're going to have a shootout in New Orleans because, you know, sometimes when Drew Brees gets going, man, he just keeps racking up points. It's like a Madden game. And I think that we're going to be airing some out, too, to Coop and Crab. And it might be a high-scoring game, honestly, but I think the Raiders take it 35-21.
I think there's going to be a lot of touchdowns to go around, but I still think they're coming out of the preseason a little bit rusty. It's going to take them some time to become a well-oiled machine, but I think there's still going to be a lot of touchdowns to go around, you know, in this particular game. All right. Well, man, we appreciate you coming on to our show, and we look forward again to getting that footage from New Orleans. How can people follow you right now? Social media, web page, what do you got going on there?
All right. So you go to RaiderLife.com, and you'll have all the links there. If you're on Facebook, just search Charlie Boots, Boots, and you'll find me. If you're on Twitter, search Raider Life, Pod, Raider Life Pod, and you'll find us there. And yeah, tune in, man, because New Orleans, we're going to be bringing you all the footage with Raider Nation right there in the French Quarter, and it's going to be a great time. So come and hang out with us.
All right, we're going to go ahead and send it on over to Coach Ted now.
Hey, Coach Ted, tell him what the play is, baby.
This is Coach Ted from RaidersAnalysis.com, and today we'll be looking at how the Raiders offense will match up with New Orleans defense, and how the Raiders defense can stop Drew Brees and the New Orleans offense.
We will first look at the New Orleans defense, led by former Oakland Raider head coach Dennis Allen. He describes his defense as an aggressive 4-3 hybrid, which means they base out of a 4-3 but could change to multiple fronts. They like to be aggressive by stacking a line and bluff blitzing, which means they could fake blitzes, or they could actually blitz in an attempt to confuse the offensive line and quarterback. On the back end, they like to play man-to-man coverage, and Raiders actually had a lot of trouble with man-to-man coverage last year, so we'll see if they can improve on that front. In the preseason, their answer to man-to-man coverage was to throw fades, but that's a very low percentage throw, and I would like to see the Raiders use more rub routes or pick concepts to create space. Here we're going to watch the Steelers run a rub concept as a slant wheel. At the bottom screen here, you're going to see this receiver, Marcus Wheaton, is going to run a slant right into this cornerback, and Antonio Brown is actually going to run a wheel route here. By creating this pick, it forces the defensive back to change his path to Antonio Brown, and it just means that he's going to play catch up and just trying to sprint to try to get back in front of Antonio Brown. You can see he goes around and he's just trying to play catch up, and he has no idea where the ball is going to be, and Antonio Brown catches the ball for touchdown. So I would like to see the Raiders use more of these concepts against the Saints. They didn't really use many pick concepts last year against the man-to-man, which was one of the reasons why they struggled versus the coverage. Another way of combating man-to-man coverage is to take advantage of matchup problems with slower inside linebackers with your running backs, tight ends. You can see here that the New Orleans defense is stacked in a line of scrimmage. Laurinaitis here is actually bluffing a blitz, and he's assigned with covering Le'Veon Bell one-on-one. Hopefully the Raiders can take advantage of this in the same way with DeAndre Washington. You can see Laurinaitis tries to sprint to get into position, but he's lost a couple steps. He used to be a really good athlete for an inside linebacker, but he's been in the league a long time, and he doesn't quite catch up. He gets there, but he's out of position and can't make a tackle on Le'Veon Bell. And again, with the speed of DeAndre Washington and his route running skills, I really believe that this is a matchup that the Raiders can exploit. In the previous two clips, the New Orleans defense was playing man-to-man coverage, but with only one safety deep. It becomes much more difficult to complete deep passes when there's two safeties deep in man-to-man coverage. In order for the Raiders to ensure that the Saints have to keep an eighth man in the box and play only one safety deep, they have to run the ball with some consistency. They don't have to dominate the ground game, but they have to run the ball and get some consistent production to warrant keeping that eighth man in the box. Against the Packers are in a two-man. Even though Carr actually completes this pass to Crabtree, you can see that the degree of difficulty on this sort of play is extremely high, and the Raiders don't want to get to themselves in a situation where they're going to routinely have to make these throws. The Raiders struggled with run defense throughout the preseason, and although the New Orleans Saints do not have the best offensive line, they're much better at run blocking than they are at pass blocking. So it's essential that we stop the run because we cannot give Drew Brees, who is a Pro Bowl caliber quarterback, the threat of a run and play action. That's an extremely difficult test against any defense. The Raiders' struggle against tight ends were well documented last year, and this year the New Orleans Saints have a pretty good one in Coby Fleener. It's going to be essential that Ben Heaney and Malcolm Smith cover Fleener because we all know that Drew Brees loves throwing to his seams. In addition to Coby Fleener, the New Orleans Saints also have Willie Snead, who caught over 900 yards in his rookie season. Snead is a really good slot receiver. It's going to be interesting to see who the Raider chooses to match up with them. Although DJ Hayden is listed as a third corner, I believe TJ Carey is much better suited to cover Snead as he is much quicker. As you can see, Drew Brees still has elite accuracy. I just don't see Hayden matching up or being able to knock some of those balls down. I think TJ Carey is much more instinctive and has much better ball skills, and I'd like to see Carey cover Snead.
So the keys offensively for the Raiders are to execute our rub concepts to create space. We have to take advantage of matchup problems with DeAndre Washington and Clive Walford. We have to run the ball with some consistency to keep one safety deep rather than two. Defensively, we're going to have to show improvement in the run game so Drew Brees does not have the threat of the run and play action. We'll have to stop Coby Fleener and Willie Snead in the middle of the field and in the seams. Thanks for watching, and make sure you follow me at Raiders Analysis on Twitter and check out my website, www.raidersanalysis.com. Thank you.
All right, thanks again, Coach Ted. That's some really interesting information. So once again, Raider Nation, the purpose of these videos is so that you can see what types of formations the Raiders are running in and when they're attacking a defense at its strength or at its weakness. So once again, we do appreciate Coach Ted, and we recommend that you guys go to his website and follow him on Facebook and Twitter as well. All right, we're going to go ahead and take a look at our By the Numbers segment now. So this is something that is not really so important because our numbers are going to be coming from the preseason, but as we progress into the season, they'll start becoming more and more and more important. We think you'll understand. Let's go ahead and send it on over to Jason for our By the Numbers.
Okay, Raider Nation. We're going to start off by taking a look at the New Orleans Saints and Oakland Raiders preseason overall record. Combined, they went 1-7. Whoever loses this Sunday will be carrying at least a 4-game losing streak. For a young team like us that is on the rise, that have a lot to prove, it's important that we get off to a fast start. We are looking for interceptions and turnovers, and if you look at the preseason, we were only able to record 2 interceptions. We need to win over the turnover battle. The more turnovers we're able to possess gives Derek Carr extra chances and better field position to attack the defense and score points. Brees is on the opposite side of his prime, and Derek Carr is just getting started. I believe the quarterback that plays the best in this game is going to give his team the best chance to win. That means no turning it over, and not only getting into the red zone, but converting those red zone opportunities into touchdowns. I do believe that Derek Carr has the upper hand here, as I believe in Amari Cooper, Seth Roberts, and Michael Crabtree as better weapons and a better chemistry between quarterback and wide receiver. For first quarter. 3 of our first 4 games are on the road. And even though we played well last season and we were a better road team than we were a home team last year, we need to make sure that we at least try to win 3 of these first 4 games. That means we have to win at least 2 games on the road and take care of our business at home versus the Atlanta Falcons. The schedule doesn't get any easier at home moving forward, where in the second half we play teams like the Broncos, Panthers, and the Buffalo Bills. If this team is going to have a shot to make the playoffs, we are going to have to start fast.
Well, we hope you guys appreciated that little segment there. Again, once the regular season starts and we start actually seeing what this team is doing on a consistent basis with its starters, this segment is going to become more and more important. Let's go ahead now and take a look at our Pick'em segment. Now, our Pick'em segment, again, is looking at the Thursday night game, the Raider game, and then the Sunday night game, and, of course, the Monday night game. So we'll be matching up some contestants, also some of our guests, and some of our Raider Nation fans, and be doing the Pick'em segment. So for right now, we're going to be taking a look at the 4 games that we talked about, and let's go ahead and go over and see who picked who this week, and we'll go ahead and tally those things up next week and let you know who it is that's ahead so far in week number 1. Let's go ahead and take a look, shall we? Okay, so if you take a look at our Pick'em segment here, unfortunately, we didn't get all of our Pick'em selections in by the deadline that we had to actually begin putting up our video here. So unfortunately, some of the information came in wrong. We are only picking from the 4 teams the Thursday night game, the Raider game, the Sunday night game, and the Monday night game. So some people sent in for different games. Other people sent in just their own games, and then we got some that didn't send in anything until past the deadline. So what we did was we basically put people who we thought were going to pick what, and then we let the computer randomly pick a few extra pieces. So this week we'll default. This is what was picked out by the computer. Again, certain people will have 1 or 2 of the teams that they picked because they did send in that information here. Like you see Watts Raider with Carolina, but that was the only one that he picked from there on down. The blank picture here with the question mark is Raider Beast, but we did not have a picture of him and did not receive anything by the deadline. So once again, we'll be starting this next week. The lovely Raiderette here is Nicole Rodriguez. She will actually be on the show next week as well to congratulate all of the players. We will have a Raiderette that comes on and does a small piece, talks to us about what their life is like as a Raiderette, the types of things that they do. So we're really looking forward to that segment as well, beginning next week. So once again, you see here we've got the Sunday game. We've got the Thursday night game. We've got the Raider game at the bottom there, and then there's the Sunday night and then the Monday game. So again, we'll always be picking the Raider game, but we will be picking the Sunday night, the Thursday, and the Monday night game. Now, if there's not a Monday night game, which there isn't sometimes, then we will default that to a different game, a nighttime game, whatever it is. Or if it's a Saturday game, we'll try to stick to that particular type of format. But again, these numbers then will be tallied up, and each week we'll come back in here and we'll figure out who's ahead, and we'll be able to track this all the way through the season. So once again, just for clarity for everybody involved, because of the confusion and sending out emails, getting emails, voicemails, again, we got all of some, 1 or 2 of another, and then none of some individuals. So now this is very, very, very clear. Everybody knows who is involved. And once again, what we're going to do is pick those 4 games and those 4 games only. So again, take a look at this screen here. It's not going to mean too much, but this is what it will look like when we pick them, show you guys what we pick them. And then on next week's show, there'll be a different graph showing who's ahead and where we stand at any given point throughout the season. Once again, a $250 Raider Image gift card will go out to the winner. So we hope that this is an enjoyable segment, that you guys can kind of track this segment with us. And we just thought we'd do something other than fantasy football, because everybody's kind of doing fantasy football, and we just thought this might be an interesting thing to kind of keep track of. I hate fantasy football because I gotta pick somebody that's going to be scoring points against my team, so I can either only pick Raiders and people outside of my division, and then by that time there's just so much that goes into it. So we hope you guys enjoy this segment. We look forward to you guys telling us all about it. All right, let's send it on back. Time to go. Well, folks, that's our show for this week. We hope you enjoyed this show as much as we enjoyed putting it together for you. Once again, we never like to end our shows without reminding you that we will be live on YouTube directly following the game. So once the game is over, probably about 15 to 20 minutes after the final play, we'll be hosting a live call-in show. The number is right here on the screen. So be sure to give us a call directly after the game, whether you're at the game or at home. Please don't hesitate to give us a call and tell us exactly what you think. So once again, we really do appreciate you watching. Please like and subscribe, because that shows us that you do like what it is that we're doing for you. Until next week, One Nation, First Nation, Raider Nation.
This is the Raider Nation!